For nearly 80 years, NATO has anchored European security, symbolizing transatlantic unity. But today, in 2025, Europe faces a crossroads. Whispers of dissent grow as some nations look eastward, drawn to the economic might of BRICS. This shift could redefine global power for generations. We'll explore NATO and BRICS' origins, their core missions, and why some Europeans are reconsidering old alliances. What economic and political pressures are driving this change? How do the ideologies and objectives of NATO and BRICS differ? Through case studies, we'll see how these trends play out on the ground. Nations questioning commitments, forging new partnerships, and shifting trade patterns. Finally, we'll weigh the risks and rewards of this realignment, asking what it means for Europe's future autonomy and global stability. The choices Europe makes now will shape the world of tomorrow. NATO was born in 1949, uniting 12 nations to deter Soviet aggression. Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all, became the alliance's core. For decades, NATO contained the Warsaw Pact and kept peace in Europe. After the Soviet Union's collapse, NATO adapted, expanding eastward and taking on crisis management roles. Operations in the Balkans and Afghanistan showed NATO's new global reach. Today, with 32 members, NATO remains the world's most powerful military alliance, accounting for over half of global defense spending. Russia's renewed assertiveness, especially in Ukraine, has revived NATO's original defensive mission, yet internal challenges persist. Burden-sharing debates, unmet defense spending targets, and diverging priorities among members. These strains, combined with shifting global economics, have led some to quietly question the alliance's future. The once unquestionable commitment to NATO is now being re-examined. BRICS began as an investment term in 2001, coined by a Goldman Sachs economist to describe Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Emerging economies that were rapidly gaining momentum and poised to reshape the global landscape. At the time, these countries were seen as the future engines of economic growth, with vast populations, abundant resources, and untapped potential. By 2009, these nations had moved beyond economic forecasts and formed a formal geopolitical bloc, aiming to coordinate their interests on the world stage. South Africa joined the group in 2010, expanding its reach to the African continent and making the bloc even more diverse. Unlike NATO or other Western alliances, BRICS is not a military pact. Instead, its primary focus is on economic cooperation, development, and amplifying the collective influence of its members in global affairs. The group seeks to give a stronger voice to emerging economies. The new development bank, launched in 2014, was a major milestone. It offers an alternative to Western-led financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank, providing funding for infrastructure and development projects, often without the political conditions or austerity measures that typically accompany Western loans. In recent years, BRICS has expanded further, welcoming new members such as Saudi Arabia and the UAE. With these additions, the bloc now represents over 45% of the world's population, and in terms of purchasing power, has surpassed the G7, the traditional group of advanced economies. The bloc champions the idea of a multipolar world, challenging the dominance of Western powers and offering an alternative vision for global governance. This message resonates with many nations that feel sidelined or disadvantaged by the current international order. For some in Europe, BRICS' message of shared growth, mutual respect, and economic autonomy is becoming increasingly attractive, especially as global power dynamics shift and traditional alliances are tested. The group's growing economic heft gives it real leverage in shaping the rules of global trade, finance, and development. BRICS is now a key player in international negotiations, able to influence decisions that affect billions. As BRICS continues to expand and evolve, its influence on the world stage is impossible to ignore. The bloc is actively shaping the future of global cooperation and competition. Europe is starting to take notice, reassessing its own strategies and relationships in response to the growing power and appeal of the BRICS alliance. NATO and BRICS represent fundamentally different visions for the world's future, each shaping global dynamics in their own way. NATO is a military alliance rooted in collective defense and shared democratic values led by the United States. Its foundation was built on the idea of mutual protection, where an attack on one is considered an attack on all. Its strength lies in deep political and military integration, with members expected to align closely on security and foreign policy. This unity is reinforced through regular joint exercises, intelligence sharing, and coordinated responses to emerging threats. BRICS, by contrast, is a loose economic and political forum, uniting diverse regimes around shared interests, growth, trade, and a reformed global order. Unlike NATO, BRICS does not require its members to adopt a common political ideology or military stance. BRICS measures success in economic terms: GDP growth, infrastructure development, and increasing influence in global institutions. Its focus is on creating new opportunities for its members and challenging the dominance of traditional Western-led organizations. NATO's success, on the other hand, is measured by its ability to deter threats, maintain stability, and respond rapidly to crises wherever they arise. Its military readiness and strategic coordination are central to its mission. For Europe, NATO offers security guarantees and a sense of collective safety. BRICS, meanwhile, presents economic opportunity and access to emerging markets, all without binding military commitments or obligations. The choice is stark: security and stability of the old world order, or the economic promise and dynamism of the new. Each path offers distinct advantages, but also unique challenges. This dichotomy is at the heart of Europe's strategic dilemma, forcing leaders to weigh the benefits of established alliances against the allure of new partnerships. Engaging with both is tempting, as it could maximize benefits. But it is not without significant risk. Balancing these relationships requires careful diplomacy and foresight. The future may demand a new kind of balancing act, one where Europe must navigate between security and prosperity, tradition and transformation, in an increasingly complex world. The transatlantic relationship is under strain. Diverging priorities, Europe's focus on Russia, America's pivot to Asia, have created uncertainty. Trade disputes and tariffs have eroded trust, while debates over digital taxes and subsidies deepen the rift. Some European leaders now call for strategic autonomy, the ability to act independently of the U.S. Doubts about America's commitment to NATO's Article 5 have unsettled allies, prompting talk of stronger European defense. The alliance is no longer seen as the only option, but one pillar among several. This shift makes engagement with blocs like BRICS less radical, more pragmatic. Europe is hedging its bets in an unpredictable world. Europe's interest in BRICS is driven by economics. The bloc's markets, China, India, Brazil, offer growth that Europe's aging economies crave. Trade between the EU and BRICS has surged, outpacing transatlantic growth. BRICS's vision of a multipolar world appeals to European ambitions for greater autonomy. The new development bank offers flexible financing for green and digital projects, aligning with EU priorities. Accessing capital without Western political conditions is attractive. As BRICS expands, Europe recognizes it can't afford to ignore the bloc. The goal isn't to choose BRICS over NATO, but to pursue a dual-track policy: security with the West, opportunity with the East. It's a complex balancing act, but one Europe is increasingly willing to try. The future may belong to those who can bridge both worlds. Across Europe, some nations are already testing the waters. Hungary, under Viktor Orban, has openly courted Russia and China, welcoming investment and blocking EU criticism of Beijing. France, led by Emmanuel Macron, champions European strategic autonomy, engaging with BRICS while maintaining NATO ties. Macron's outreach to China signals a desire for independence from US policy. Germany, deeply tied to both the US and China, faces pressure to de-risk but remains economically entwined with Beijing. Even Italy joined China's Belt and Road Initiative, highlighting the economic temptations. These examples show that reconsidering alliances is no longer fringe, it's a growing trend. Each country's approach is different, but the direction is clear. Europe is diversifying its partnerships, seeking flexibility in a changing world. The old order is no longer taken for granted. Europe's flirtation with BRICS is a high-stakes gamble, one that could redefine the continent's role on the world stage. As European leaders weigh their options, the decisions they make now could have ripple effects for generations to come. The biggest risk is clear: undermining NATO's unity and the credibility of its security guarantee, which has been the bedrock of European defense since World War II. If Europe appears divided or distracted, it could send the wrong message to both allies and adversaries. A divided focus could weaken US commitment to European security, leaving the continent more exposed, especially to threats from Russia, which has shown a willingness to test the boundaries of European resolve. There are value-based risks too. BRICS includes powerful authoritarian states, and forging deeper ties could force Europe to compromise on its core principles of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. This could spark internal debates and public protests across European capitals. Yet the rewards are undeniably tempting. Closer ties with BRICS could boost economic resilience, open up vast new markets, and unlock funding for ambitious green transitions. For European industries, this could mean new opportunities for growth and innovation. Diversifying partners could reduce Europe's dependence on any single power, making the continent less vulnerable to economic or political pressure from the US, China, or Russia. Europe could also gain new global influence, positioning itself as a bridge between the West and the global South, and playing a more active role in shaping international norms and policies. The question remains, do these potential gains truly outweigh the risks to the security architecture that has kept Europe safe and prosperous for decades? The debate is fierce, and opinions are deeply divided. The gamble is real, and the stakes could not be higher. Every move is being watched, every decision scrutinized by both friends and rivals. Europe now stands at a crossroads, forced to decide if it can truly have the best of both worlds, or if, by reaching too far, it risks losing both security and opportunity. The outcome of this gamble will shape not just Europe's future, but the balance of power across the globe. The world is watching, and history will remember what Europe chooses next. The old certainties of the post-war era are fading, replaced by a more fluid, multipolar world. NATO has anchored European security for decades, while BRICS has risen as a powerful economic force. Europe's pivot is driven by economic need, a desire for autonomy, and cracks in the transatlantic bond. Case studies show this is no longer theory, it's reality. The risks weakening NATO and compromising democratic values. The rewards economic vitality and a more independent global role. Europe stands at a historic inflection point, caught between its security ally and its economic partners. The choices made now will redraw the global map of power. As Europe balances security and prosperity, which will it choose when the two come into conflict?